All right, so this is going to be an example on finding our vertex algebraically. First step, I'm going to just write out what my coefficients are. So for my A term, let me just get my pen going. All right, so we have a -1 here. So A is -1, B is going to be -2, C is going to be +1, right? For my formula, remember when we have a quadratic equation, we have x equal to -b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that is all over 2a. And if we know that, we know what our formula for our axis of symmetry is. We just grab this part, right? All we're doing is just grabbing that part, -b over 2a. So axis of symmetry, we can write it as A dot O dot S, right? Axis of symmetry, just my abbreviation. So we're going to have -b all over 2a. So when we put this in, we're just going to plug our numbers in. So we go negative, in parentheses, we have a -2 divided by 2 times a -1. So we get a negative times a -2. So think of that as -1 times -2 on top. And we end up having a +2. 2 times a -1 gives us a -2 in the denominator. And then we have 2 divided by -2 gives us a -1, opposite signs, right? So we know that the x-coordinate of our vertex is -1. So let me just make a note of that. Vertex -1. I gotta find what that is. So in order to find what that is, what we need to do is come all the way over here. And I'm just going to change my color now. So I am just going to input in for my x value -1, because that's what we found for our axis of symmetry. So I go negative, and I'm just using my original equation over here, right? That's all I'm going to do is put it all the way over here. So I get a -1 squared minus 2 times -1 plus 1. All right, and when I do that, I get -1 squared to +1, but it's times this negative on the outside. It gives me -1. -2 times -1 gives me a +2. And then I have +1 on the end. And when we do this out, we get -1 plus 3 gives me just 2. All right, and so my vertex, when I write it out, is going to be -1, 2. All right, so I first did today we did an example of looking at axis of symmetry from the graph. And this is just an example of just a little bit more practice of finding our axis of symmetry and our vertex from algebraically, not from a graph. So we're just going to do a couple more problems practicing that. Again, I went through the exit ticket. I just want to make sure we understand this before we move on to, applying it to real world problems. So we're going to have another exit ticket today, and then we'll move on to that section next.